animals to be removed, and it had made Kate wince every time she'd seen them, many decapitated, most dirty with synthetic, rain-matted fur. Then there was the time she was driving along and saw a car puttering along at maybe 10 k's an hour in the stopping lane. She and her friends had turned back to see no one visible at the wheel. Kate and her then boyfriend, Michael King, and their mate Steve felt too sick to speak. They slowed down and gawped, too scared to drive back to the Toyota to see what had happened. Suddenly, a police car zoomed up, told them to move on. Nothing to see here. They discovered, not half an hour later, from a cop contact of Kate's, that a guy had set out on the Barton Highway from Canberra, dosed himself up with enough OxyContin to knock over a horse and kept driving on the Hume until he lost consciousness. By the time they'd seen him, he was slumped to the side, his foot at a miraculous angle on the accelerator that kept him at such a slow speed and didn't veer him into oncoming traffic. Kate, Michael and Steve spent the rest of their road trip in silence. The culmination of this strangely gothic drive was the Pheasants' Nest Bridge, a place name without an apostrophe. A place name, thought Kate Delaney, bound up in a mistake. Didn't the nest belong to the pheasant? Kate had a horror of missing apostrophes. Every time she saw the sign on the entrance to the bridge, she vowed that when she returned, she would bring a marker pen and add the punctuation herself. But who was she kidding? Kate Delaney wouldn't get out of the car at Pheasants' Nest. She sensed the darkness of this place even in the daytime. Pheasants' Nest made Kate Delaney shiver. Back in 1990, the bodies of 2 teenage boys had been found inside the bridge's huge concrete pylons. They had climbed into the tunnel in the undercarriage of the bridge and plunged to their deaths in the shafts. But most of the lives that finished off at Pheasants' Nest did not end accidentally. Most of the people who ended their days at Pheasants' Nest were jumpers. The Pheasants' Nest Bridge and the surrounding bridges that lined that stretch of the Hume were notorious for jumpers. If you lived near the coast in Sydney, you threw yourself from the Gap at Watson's Bay. But if you're a Westie, particularly an outer Westie, your jump of choice was Pheasants' Nest. And as Kate Delaney had sped past those bridges, those forests, she'd never failed to feel overcome by the road that ran along at the top of the gum trees and the unspoken sadness that surrounded it. The ghosts clamouring for attention out of the bleak stillness of the bush. Chapter 2. Bar. It now seems like days ago that Kate first noticed him across the bar. It has really only been a matter of hours, but she's been unconscious for many of them. It has left her confused and hazy. How many hours? She doesn't know. Time seems elastic and imprecise. It's still quite dark, so she figures it's only 4 or 5 a.m. She isn't sure what he's been up to in the interim. Has he stopped anywhere? Has he been caught on CCTV? Will they be able to trace him? She hopes so, but doesn't know. He had looked at her across that bar in Northcote in a puppyish way at first. Kate was out with a group of girlfriends, Sylvia, Addie, Bridget and Sophie. He was there with another guy that she was sure he would describe as his wingman. He was on the cusp of middle age, but obviously placed a lot of pride in his appearance. Not particularly tall, but buff in the way that only someone who spends hours in the gym several times a week can be. A tattoo of a yin and yang sign on one of his biceps. Strawberry blonde hair tipped in the style of Australian cricketers. Fitted aqua shirt made of some sort of unspeakable synthetic fibre that strained slightly and deliberately at the buttons, tucked into pale Levi's that left a bit too little to the imagination. It occurred to her later that he probably thought the shirt matched his eyes, which were glassy slits the colour of pale seawater. They crinkled in the corners in what was prima facie an agreeable way, but upon closer inspection they fixed on things a little too hard. The laugh was a little too practised. He threw back his head as he did shots with his friend at an angle that was somehow too acute, slapped his mate twice on the shoulder and winked in a way that he'd seen in a TV show. This